All aboard! For this stagecoach is about to move out. It is for everyone that has potential and would love to be a superstar. Yeah, buddy, this stagecoach is leaving for Fun Timesville. And the Lord God is your driver. To see that we have a safe trip. Holla!
Friday nights at 12:30, 9:30 on Saturday morning.
All aboard! All aboard! All aboard!
Say, look at here.
JC, if you've got Comcast C2, tune in every Friday night at 12:30 and again Saturday morning at 9:30 for the AC Funtime television show.
If you have talent and would love to be on the show, contact Arthur Chisholm 843-200-4487 or Elder Carlingtown 843-735-2189.
Look at here, are you having an event, gospel or R&B? Need a band, a DJ, or videographer? Contact Arthur Chisholm, Facebook.
Or Elder Carlingtown on Facebook.
Please subscribe to AC Funtime TV on YouTube.
AC Funtime Comcast C2, 12:30 Friday night, 9:30 Saturday morning.
Be there.
Now, to give us the purpose for this evening, we will have the co-founder of the Liberty Hill Improvement Council, Mr. Copley Hilton.
Good evening. You know, over 6 years ago, an article was published in the Post and Courier that detailed and brought to our attention the illiteracy rates of our young people in Charleston County entering the 9th grade. Over 50% of those students entering the 9th grade in Charleston County were assessed at reading at a grade level of 4th grade or lower. So my good friend, Mr. Robert Flood, will be here later. He and I sat down and tried to put our hands together, our minds together as to how we can combat this issue. So we decided that we would not start with those kids entering high school. We would begin with those in pre-K and 5th grade, get them at an early age. And that's when we found out that Charleston County stopped teaching reading in the 2nd grade. That may be news to some of you all. So we started in the feeder school in the First Seat Elementary. The majority of the students at that time were from Liberty Hill, all the love of Liberty Hill. We started with 20 students. Each of these students were assessed at reading below their grade level. Some of these kids came to us and could not write their name. By the end of the first school year, I'm here to tell you those kids were not only writing their names, but they were writing book reports. Y'all can back. Dr. Nelson Rivers would say, church say amen. Amen. Our second year, we had 40 students. At the end of the year, again, 100% of these students were reading at or above grade level. We're very proud to tell you that Percy, that was later than failing school, is now a passing school. Another byproduct of literacy, these kids are not only learning how to read, but you'd be amazed that the math scores and the science scores are increasing as well. These kids are making it happen. And that's why we're here tonight. Because of your efforts and the efforts of the people in the community, the efforts in the school system, the students, the parents, volunteers from the School of the Arts, from Academic Magnet High School, College of Charleston, they're all making a difference in the lives of our young people, our future. An alarming rate of our students, instead of going on to 4-year colleges, they end up at the Al Cannon Detention Center. Me being a mortician, I've heard far too many of our young people. And in our penal system, the majority of the inmates, or the residents, if you would, are illiterate. Kids are going to jail, kids are going to the cemetery, and they're leaving kids behind. Friends and family, we can make a difference if we put our minds together. Where would we be if we did not have that village? So thank you for being here tonight. May God bless and keep you. Thank you.
So let the fire begin. Our second roaster tonight is a mentee of Mr. Hamilton. I talked to her a little bit tonight as we were on the stage, and she was telling me about the important role that he played in his life, but tonight it's a different story. So I want to call up to the stage now, Ms. Vivian Simmons. Mr. Hamilton was always considered to be fearless. Many of the young ladies and the young men in the band were heavier than him, and they were taller than him, but it was never considered Mr. Hamilton. From time to time, we would see him go empty-handed into a room, and he would take some young men with him, sometimes even some young ladies. But he always came out smiling, and he was empty-handed. It was sometimes long after that we learned that part of his fearlessness was due to the fact that he had an equalizer. Equalizer was This is Francis. Spare the rod, spoil the child. I do want you to know we were never spoiled. Thank you very much for your attention and honoring this great mentor, Mr. Lonnie Humphrey III, our father. You know what to do. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Pastor Joe.
I don't watch much of it. But I do watch Channel 5 because of my friends, Rita, and my former friend, Andy Hill. I thought we came to roast Lonnie, and she wants to roast me. And at charity, I have to sing. I got from a friend named Ruth Ash, said, 10,000 comedians looking for a job. And you trying to put them out of work. But let's give our MC a hand clap of praise. I'm not too serious with it. What I really appreciate about her, she has integrity as a journalist and comes across in the work that she does. And not every story is worth doing. And how you do the story has a lot to do with how it's received. And Channel 5 is blessed to have it. And we're glad to have you in this program. Copley asked me to do this. I don't think Copley really knew of the connection between Mr. Hamilton and myself. I think if I told him, he may not believe it. I can't roast him because I don't do roasting. Because you have to either make it up or you have to intentionally be mean. And since I can't do that to Lonnie Hamilton III, I think you may put me last so that we can wrap this up. I do want to share some insight that came from Mr. Hamilton and how I really knew before I had a chance to meet him. When I was at Burke High School, I was in the band from 1963 to 1960. That's right, we started high school in 8th grade, what we used to call sub-freshman. And I looked like I was 6 or 7 years old. And I joined the band. A friend of his, Mr. Hodges, was our band director. And in the room, when they went down the list, Brother Hamilton, of what you wanted to play, and they went to the reeds and the horns, and all down the sections, and there was a big contingent who did not move. And that was the rest of us because we only wanted to play drums. And Mr. Hodges said, I got news for you. Well, we don't have a drum corps, we got a band. You need to pick an instrument. So I picked the trumpet, and then I picked baritone. Hodges and Kenny at C. Brown were the competitors for Barnes Wilson. People at Charities over there, they always mess with me about being such a love of Burke High School, only because it's the baddest school in the world. That's not the case, man. There's only one left. At Burke, we used to go to Lang and Howard, Harleyville, and we'd go places, Colleton. Whenever we would practice to get ready to do the halftime show, every school, frankly, was looked down upon by us, by our band director, because he knew we would just show up and win. just showing up, because that's how we roll. We to show up and win. But he always had this respect for somebody named Lonnie Hamilton III, so much so that I thought Mr. Hamilton was a giant and a much older person. When I finally had a chance to meet him as a member of the band, I was amazed at how much respect between the three of them was shared, Hodges and Kenny and Hamilton. Got out of school, started going, hanging out, performing your best routine and all that. And every now and then we go somewhere, and they would have this band playing. And they said Lonnie Hamilton was playing in the band. And I could not get over the fact, this is the giant of band directors in there kicking it in the club. And I was good at kicking it in the club. I had club kicking degrees, right? And he was up there doing that thing and riffing and going through all that stuff. I was thinking, that's Mr. Hamilton, that's Mr. Hamilton. That really caused me great pause. And then he got elected to county council. Now, I've been blessed in my work, and the wife could tell you, I've always been somewhat of a controversial person because I'm driven by this commitment to justice, but I was blessed because when I came to North Charleston, I never had any haste. Now, downtown, yes, Bert Fielding, Gerald Brown, that crowd, they were hazy. But in North Charleston, for whatever reason, I never got hazy. Eli Brockington, Saul White, Walter Jenkins, the list goes on. They all decided, Big Daddy, the Q, all decided for some reason the downtown boy would be accepted, including Mr. Hamilton. But we didn't get along all the time because I had a distinct view about what was wrong with Charleston County politics, including needing single-member districts, and he was a living defiance of my theory. My theory was you could not be black and be elected to Charleston County Council unless you came from a district. He kept being elected. And so he kept conflicting with my theory. And so we would have long arguments about the merits of single-member districts versus at-large election because he was the example. I said the only problem is when you done, we done. They ain't gonna be any more like you. You're the only one who can get elected like that. Eventually did change the single-member district. That's why we got the rest of them on county council. But in the midst of that, I'll tell you the most impressive thing in band students is not the band director that will be your best friend. It will be the teacher in the band. If you get somebody who thinks enough of your future to see it when you can, who will do things to you that other folk will not, when you yourself cannot even believe that you're going to live beyond the 12th grade, let alone become something. When you have that in your life, you've been blessed. And all the folk that I've dealt with at Barnes Wilson, all jokes aside, they always talk about not just him as a band director, but as a person. And that's such a tremendous benefit to this community that when he said he was going to do it, I jumped at the chance because I wanted to share with folk what they may not understand from a young person who is moving in the arena of not politics, praise God, but serving what I thought was the justice fight in my community. And one day, after Hamilton and I argued, fussed, he would fuss me out, tell me why I was wrong, told me I was too young, too impetuous, I was too impatient, all of which was true, but who cares? And so he told me all of that. And then one day, just before I went to Columbia to become the state director of the NAACP, he called. And he said, they have this thing called Leadership South Carolina. And they asked us to name people, young people we think would make it and would do well in Leadership South Carolina. And I want to know if you let me nominate you. Who knew? But after all that drama, that he would still think enough of me to nominate me to Leadership South Carolina. So I was in the first or second class of Leadership South Carolina, 55 students in the class, only 7 African Americans and 2 males, Brother Burton from the clinic and myself, and then 5 tremendous women. And in that changed everything. Because when Lonnie Hamilton thinks enough of you to ask you to go serve on a statewide level and puts the word in for you, the people told me clearly, because Hamilton recommended you. That's how I got there. I bless God for you. Because in that class, Jim Hodges, the former governor, the last Democrat to win the governor's chair, Maybe not forever, but could be. And Jim Hodges became a good friend of mine. And I used to make fun of Jim Hodges after he was elected governor. I was in his office trying to take the flag down. One day he wouldn't do it. And I told him how his legacy could be taking the flag down. Jim, you ain't going to be re-elected. So you might as well do something big right now. He thought, no. And I told him, I said, you know what, Jim? You are the perfect example of affirmative action for white people. Because you were the most nondescript, invisible person of the 55. And now you're governor of South Carolina. And Lonnie Hamilton had not put me in, I would not have been able to see how you can be a nobody and be elected governor. The last thing is that Lonnie would play anything, Lonnie Hamilton, third. And one day we're sitting out, you might remember this, out on before we get to Ravenel, there was a house they built back up, and it became like a club, and they had you out there playing one year. The Alumni Association had you playing. And he's playing for the Wilberforce University Alumni Association, with Nelson Rivers as the president. And he plays Dixie. It took a long time. Get over that one. Look at all he didn't know. You know, quit talking to somebody, but you're not important enough. Quit talking. I quit speaking Lonnie for a long time. The last thing is they named the building for you. And I am a great opponent of living buildings, naming buildings after any living person. Because as I heard Pete Rose say one time, if you live long enough, you're going to mess up the reason to name it. So you name after the dead person, at least you got the whole record. So you named the bridge after Ravenel. Who knew that he can have his own TV show? When you name stuff after people, they might mess it up. But Lonnie Hamilton is the only time that they named a building after a living person that I was confident of one thing. He will never do anything to make the folks who did it regret that they did it. The biggest thing I have to say about Mr. Hamilton is he is an encourager and enabler. In this life, very few people have made it who didn't have somebody who stood between the opposition and the opportunity to say, you can do this, I want to help you do it, and they recede into the background and never regret. Barnes Wilson has turned out hundreds and hundreds of students who can claim that you were the enabler and the interceder for them on their behalf. And I'm just privileged that Copley Hilton, my good friend and brother Flood, allowed me to represent all of them and say to you, if it had not been for you, where in the world would they be and I be? And because of that, God bless you. I love you, and I give much respect to you because you are a different man.
Mr. Lonnie Hamilton.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I am thrilled to be here tonight, but I want you to know this is not about me. I became connected with Hilton Copley about doing something for these children. And I saw how they took 30 kids and helped those kids to pass the test. These were kids who, they said, would never be able to pass the test. Copley and his group took these 30 kids. First, they taught them how to pass the English test. Then they came back and they passed the math test. Then they took 60 people, since we were doing so well, and they both passed the English and the math. I was thrilled by that and impressed. because I come from a long history of loving children. And by loving children, you hate to see things go wrong. If you're not doing what Hilton and this group are doing, then you're in trouble. Because the young people are our tomorrow. Right. You may not think about it. They are our tomorrow. And what they're doing is helping us. Because what they're doing is that they help them, and then the one thing that they ask them to do is to pass it on. That way, one helps one. On the other hand, if you don't help these kids, Andy Savage, who's one, in my opinion, one of the greatest criminal attorneys in this country, Andy will have a job. Because Andy Savage then will have the job then of trying to get them out of jail. Because most of them then will end up being incarcerated. And then you're going to pay them to keep in jail. And it's more expensive then, because what you're doing, you're buying cars for the policemen, you're buying uniform for them, you're buying them the best weapons, and you're feeding them, and you're giving them a building to operate in. So it is really costing you a lot of money to try to correct the situation after it gets down the road. I'm happy to be here tonight because I haven't had a chance to see any of these guys in a long time, to sit down and have any conversation with them, especially your father. Andy Savage and I serve on the county council, and I remember when I started talking about wanting to do something about our waste and managing it, and the council members said, including his father, well, what do you think we should do? And an idea came to me about taking garbage, raw garbage, burning the garbage, generating steam from the garbage, and selling that garbage back to the Navy. His father knew nothing about garbage. When he came up, he knew nothing about it. But I asked the council at that time to allow me to take any council person that would like to go with me down to Florida, because they were doing it well down there. Since we had no experience, they didn't know what was going on. I would come up with the ideas, but since they hadn't seen it, they said, this guy's crazy. So I took them down to Florida, and we spent several days down there looking at what was being done in Florida and giving them the idea of getting some experience. When we came back, we started recycling and burning garbage in Charleston County. And we did that for several years. Now, the one thing I was afraid of when they talked about that, the one thing I was afraid of, dealing with the Navy had the ships coming into Charleston Harbor. And I knew the ships were coming in. And I knew that when ships came into Charleston Harbor, they needed to have steam in order to be at the dry dock. And I said, we can take that steam, sell that steam to the Navy, and once we sold the steam to the Navy, then we've got rid of the garbage, and we still get some money back. But the one thing I was afraid of, they would always ask me, including his father, none of you sure this thing will work. Now, I'm afraid. I've got 17 lawyers with me. I'm in Washington, D.C. And I'm frightened to death because if the Navy decided that the next day after we had the contract, and we signed a contract for 20 years, if the Navy had decided that they were going to pull out of Charleston, everybody would laugh at me. So there was a young white lawyer, and I told him my fears. And he said, Mr. Hamilton, you can fix that. The two stacks of papers that we had in the contract were two stacks like this, two books. he said we can put a clause in the contract, a take-or-pay clause. That means that if the Navy signs a contract with a take-or-pay clause in it, it means that if they stop and they decide that they didn't want to do business with us anymore, then they still have to pay us for the scheme. And so this young lawyer, he must have been 27 years old. He took the take-or-pay clause and slipped it in the middle of the The Secretary of the Navy told me that they were not going to sign the contract. What they were waiting for, since I came up with all these ideas, they didn't want to get ready for it. So what they said is wait until he gets out. That'll take another month. And when he gets out, then it's time to sign the contract. So I went to Strom Thurmond and I asked Strom Thurmond to help me because the Navy, the Secretary of the Navy did not want to sign the contract. Strom Thurmond came to Charleston and talked about it. And this is what Strom Thurmond said to me after I told him my problem. He said, Lonnie, get me the Secretary of the Navy on the phone. I looked in the room and there's no phone. I was glad because I didn't know how to get the Secretary. Senator, I said, you're going back to Washington tonight, aren't you? He said, yeah. I said, well, I can wait till tomorrow. So the next day at 2 o'clock, I got a call from Senator Thurmond, and he said, Lonnie, I said, yes, sir. He said, the Secretary of the Navy will sign that contract. They signed the contract with the clause in the middle of it, and they missed it. And now when they decided to leave Charleston, it's not this time, when they decided to leave Charleston and they closed the base, they didn't know what to do with the steam. And then I reminded them, I said, there's a clause in there, and I told them the page. I said, there's a clause in there, take-or-pay clause. And for 6 years, the Navy paid Charleston County for that stream, and they blew it in the air.
I just want to thank you again for coming out. We had a great time. Appreciate everything you do for us.
The pleasure's all mine. I appreciate so much you're doing for these kids.
Mr. Flood, I know you had a great time.
I sure did, and likewise, Ms. Hamilton, I'd like to thank you for coming out tonight. Just know that what you did for us tonight is going to surely be a just reward for the kids.
It's all for the kids.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. Again, we'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening for this very worthwhile cause. It's the Liberty Hill Improvement Council After-School Literacy Program. We're raising funds to educate our kids. We're trying to accommodate another 130 students that are out there reading well below their grade level. Worthwhile cause. We're a 501c3 organization. Visit us at www.lhicliteracy.org.